I moved to the East Village last year from a concrete dorm building in Midtown. I grew up in Atlanta, and the East Village was always the picture of New York I had in my head. I desperately wanted to live there. I'm fascinated by the lore that surrounds the East Village. Living here, it feels like you're a part of something, like you're following in the footsteps of the artists and musicians and activists before you. When I moved here, though, I was surprised by what the reality of the East Village was today. Affluent career millennials and finance workers were my neighbors. Instead of a million gritty dive bars, there were five-star restaurants. Where were all of the artists and musicians? I don't know why I'm nostalgic for a time I never experienced. I wonder, what was it really like, stripped from my romanticized view? Has it always been the place to be? My downstairs neighbor Steve is a permanent resident in my building. He's been living in his apartment since 1974, and unlike my completely renovated apartment, his is untouched. He's experienced decades of the East Village. Needless to say, I had a lot of questions for him about how the neighborhood has evolved. What has it been like watching the East Village evolve, kind of from your standpoint?
I think it's kind of it's my answer would be sort of bifurcated. It's kind of sad that you miss the old life. On the other hand, it's much safer. So I don't know which is best. Back in the old days, in the 70s certainly, and this was kind of over a large part of the city. It was much more dangerous. It was much. There was a lot of drug dealing on the street. There was people's apartments were robbed, people were getting mugged, that kind of stuff, and who knows what else. It was much more dangerous than it is now. I don't think it's dangerous at all. I think I told you this before. Everyone wanted to live in the West Village, but no one could afford it. This was the only affordable area in Manhattan, as far as I knew, except for, probably uptown, way uptown in Harlem.
What drew you to the East Village? It sounds like it was mostly price.
Price. Yeah, entirely price, I think.
Was there anything exciting happening here that you also felt good about moving here, or was it mostly just price?
Well, it was, always exciting, sometimes the kind of the pejorative side of exciting. When I first lived here, I cleaned apartments. That's what I was doing. A lot of people did that. If they weren't waiting tables, they were cleaning apartments. Yeah, or they had a legitimate job. And when you were kind of concerned with getting by, I don't know, kind of in retrospect, it maybe has more of an effect. At the time, when you're just concerned with getting by, you don't really think too much about being part of something that was important. Your generation, you have to know you have to have a career path. All by the time you're in the third grade, you have to know exactly what you're going to do. Back in those days, I graduated in '72. It was okay to just float, and a lot of people were just floating. There were career paths, but I wasn't on one. 1972, it was kind of the end of this whole, Warhol scene. There was a whole Andy Warhol kind of crowd that, I think I mentioned to you, that movie Trash, it really, I think it's 1970, that's kind of what the East Village was. It was pretty seedy, and if you see the movie, though, there's not a lot of exterior shots. There's one shot when the guy is walking down St. Mark's over in the block between 2nd and 3rd. The Warhol stuff was on the wane. It was, that was centered at Max's Kansas City, which is up there on Park Avenue South, about 16th, I think. That was the big club. And, I think it did bring some prestige. But the neighborhood itself had a lot, I don't know what the percentages are, but it was Polish and Ukrainian, right? There's still little vestiges of that now, you know. And there's that church around the corner, that St. Stanislaus, you know, that's a Polish church. And if you ever walk by there on a Sunday, you know, there's a lot of Polish people outside of there, but I don't think they live here anymore, or just a few do. But it used to be much, much more. You know, a lot of old ladies with the headscarves, lots of that. They're over in the park. So it was very heavy Polish and Ukrainian, because they moved in after. Do you know about that General Slocum disaster?
Is that the boat?
This was a big German neighborhood. And then I think it was a German church over on 6th Street hired that boat. It caught fire, and it was the biggest loss of life until 9/11. And so I guess it was just so traumatic for so many of the German families. They moved up to the Upper East Side. There was a part up there, I'm not sure exactly where, I think in the high 80s, that they called Germantown. And when they moved out, a lot of Poles and Ukrainians moved in. This woman who lived directly across the street, this woman Anna, very sweet old woman, and she was always there at the window with her scarf. But she was very pleasant and everything. But she died. You know, a lot of these people were pretty old. They're very. I occasionally see some around, you know, but not like it used to be.
Do you know a lot of people in the neighborhood, would you say?
I used to, not so much anymore.
Is it hard to see a lot of people moving in and out of the building and of the neighborhood?
As far as the building goes, I knew everyone in the building. I had keys to 5 apartments beside my own, you know, because people were going away. Could you look after the cat? This kind of stuff. Could you pick up my mail? That's what everybody knew everybody. I guess it's not exactly hard, but it's sort of different, you know, because I remember I saw a woman in the hall and I said hello, and she looked at me like, who the hell are you? I thought, okay. So by the time I moved here in '74, that's kind of when CBGB's was starting up, and I'd go down there a lot, and you know, see these different bands, and you know, Patti Smith and Television, and definitely Ramones. I never missed the Ramones, but when the first time I saw them, I never missed them when they were down there.
I'm fascinated by the fact that Steve was surrounded by all of this art and culture. He told me about how he wrote music reviews for the Village Voice and would see Patti Smith at the grocery store. Overall, though, Steve gave me a sense that the neighborhood simply wasn't as gentrified and wealthy as it is now. The community aspect of the East Village has dwindled, but he told me about a website that's given me a bit more access to a community.
Did you ever go on the website Evie Greevy?
After browsing this site, I came across a gallery that was hosting a painter who painted scenes of what the East Village used to be. I thought it was a perfect way to continue my investigation. The paintings, as I suspected, illustrated the grittiness of the East Village that Steve had described. There was a magazine for sale in the gallery that described the East Village in the 70s. By 1970, the East Village was in the throes of a heroin epidemic. The landlords let the buildings dilapidate. Fires, torched for insurance money, a tradition, gutted many. Vacant lots sprung up. The population of older and minority neighborhood stalwarts became victims of this disinvestment. Water and heat disappeared from apartments regularly. It became an environment of chaos and decay. Steve described this history of issues with our building, which eventually led to 2 rent strikes spearheaded by him. I'm glad that living here now I don't have to experience that. I'm glad that I feel safe enough to walk around at night. But of course the trade-off is a loss of the grittiness and edge that the East Village was known for.
What's happening in New York? Look around. Try to get an apartment.
Although the East Village is constantly changing and evolving, there are still pockets of its rich history. Who knows what it will become, but whatever it is, I'm happy to live here and to be a part of it.